Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Playful Pumpkin Fairies, and I'm going to be sipping on my iced tea. And if you enjoy this experience, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, purple violet, chrome orange, green oxide, chrome yellow, burnt umber, which I will call brown, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up those colors too if you like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paint and the brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are brown, purple, orange, yellow, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be bringing my sky down a little bit past the halfway mark. So if this is like halfway into your canvas, I'm going to be going about an inch below that, and we'll make a couple of markers in a minute. But what I'm going to do is that's about as far down as I'm going to have it. I'm going to have my big, bright sunrise or sunset happening right in this area in through here, and my sky is going to be darker and darker as it goes farther and farther away from that sun. I'm going to be starting at my dark areas and working my way towards the light, and then we're going to pull out some beautiful sunbeams from that sun itself. So I'm going to start with some brown and purple on my brush at the same time, about equal parts of both. I'm going to make myself a couple of markers on the left and the right, so that'll stop me from going any further down than I want to. So if this is about halfway, and you can just eyeball where the halfway point is, make yourself a mark about an inch or so below that, and you can either use your brush or any kind of anything as a measuring tool to see about how high you did it, and you can go over to the other side and make your mark at about the same level. And then if you need to, you can certainly reload your brush, but I'm going to still be having brown and purple on my brush. I'm going to be using a left to right type of brush stroke to create my sky. So this will give me the illusion or the impression of maybe some light clouds coming by, just, you know, daintily floating by like our fairies are going to be. Well, they're going to be dancing, but we can, you know, make it look as nice and gentle as you want. You can use tons of purple, you can use tons of brown, whatever is visually appealing to you. I'm going to have it a little bit darker over here on the right hand side, maybe some streaks of this purple and brown throughout the top portion of the sky. You can see that I'm leaving some lighter areas. I'm going to be introducing some of my orange into those areas in a minute, but right now just kind of getting my purple and brown on here, getting as much of that on the canvas as I want before I start introducing the lighter colors into it, and that way I won't have to worry about reloading my brush. So now that I've got that, and I'm kind of pushing my brush into my canvas to kind of release a lot of that color. Now what I'm going to do without washing my brush is I'm picking up some orange paint and I'm going to intermingle that orange into the areas that I've already created. So because I left some of those lighter areas, this is going to be very, very vibrant and it's going to show up and intermingle with them really nicely. I'm going to start right now picking up orange with a little bit of white on my brush. So now I'm going to get some lighter tones of this orange just kind of intermingling with my purples and my browns, making it look like a really nice natural setting or sun rising kind of colors. And in a minute here, I'm going to start adding my yellow to my brush. So that way I can start to get these colors to be really nice and vibrant as they come in towards the sun. So if you have a ton of purple on your brush still, what I would recommend is either washing it and drying it or giving it a good squeeze in your paper towel. That's going to release that dark tone. I'm going to pick up some yellow and orange on my brush at the same time and start intermingling that yellow into the sky with the orange together so they look nice and natural. Now I'm just picking up some yellow and I'm going to in a second start picking up my white. But right now just kind of getting these tones of the yellow and the orange to just kind of really be very evident throughout this sky. And then in a second I'm going to start picking up my white. Now because it is a beautiful colorful sky, you can certainly make yours out to be whatever brightness or darkness or vibrancy that you want. It's your sky. There are no two skies alike in this world, so you can get it to look whatever way you want. I just picked up a little bit more orange so I can have a little bit more orange represented down over here. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to wash my brush. So I'm washing and drying my brush because I want to get into this sun right now and I want to make sure that I have nice clean white for that center sun. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm going to pick up some white paint. I'm doing a really big area down here with my white paint. If you run into wet paint along the edges, that's totally fine. I actually want to intermingle it with those colors next to it. So running into those colors is totally fine. I'm going to have mine in this really large area in through here. And then I'm going to start to overlap it into my sky color. My sky colors around it are still a little wet, which is excellent. If yours are not, you can certainly just put a little bit of yellow on your brush to get it to intermingle a little bit in through here. And of course yours can be in a circular sense. It can be, you know, kind of splayed out a little bit, whatever is visually appealing to you. I'm now going to pick up a little bit of yellow to make sure that I have a nice vibrant edge around my sun. So you could do a semicircle like this to make sure that you have that circular shape to it. If you wanted to just make sure that you've got some sort of cylindrical type of look to it, you can certainly do that. Picking up a little bit more yellow just to make sure I've got great contrast around the edges of my sun. And then what I'm going to do, once I feel like I've got this pretty well set, I am going to wash and dry my brush again and start pulling out white sunbeams, which will intermingle with my sky colors. Because they're still wet, it's going to pull it right through and it's going to look very cool, in my opinion. So I just put some clean white paint on my brush. I wanted to do this while it was wet, so this way as I'm doing this, it's going to have these fun streaks that really kind of intermingle with pull the sky colors into the sun and the sun colors into the sky. If your surrounding paint is not wet, what you can do is you can add a little bit of water to your brush, and that's going to give you a fluid type of look to the white paint that you're just kind of dragging through. And once I've got my beams as beaming as I want, what I'm going to do is just wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up a little bit more white paint, and just make sure that I have this center area didn't get tainted too much. I just kind of can put a little bit more white paint back in that area and just make sure that that's nice and vibrant. And then we are going to be using the same brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful sky done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the grass. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are brown, purple, green, yellow, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to have it really dark down at the bottom, kind of dark along the edges, and then it's going to be the lightest right as it gets towards the sun. I'm going to be using a stippling type of technique. I'm going to start at the dark areas and work my way to the light. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to pick up some brown and purple on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to do a whole bunch of brown and purple dots at the bottom of my canvas. You can pick these colors up at the same time. You could pick up just purple one time. You could pick up just brown one time. Whatever works for you is totally fine. Once I've got a bunch of dots with those two colors on, I'm going to pick up some green and brown on my brush and intermingle some green and brown down at the bottom with these colors as well. What I'm trying to avoid is over dotting and getting too excited and sitting in one spot and just dotting 100 times in the same spot. Because what that's going to do is that's going to turn them all to one color. You'll in essence be blending them all into one solid color. So what I like to do is just kind of make a dot and then just move on. I don't need to sit in the same spot and dot 100 times. This way it allows me that diversity in the ground. So as I'm working my way up towards the sun, I didn't wash my brush. I just picked up some green paint, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start overlapping this green paint into this bottom section, and I'm just adding it with these dots. And because I'm using this stippling or dotting type of technique, it is going to allow for this green or any of these colors to have light spots and dark spots within each paint stroke, because I'm just using the tip of the brush, which allows it to have these little speckly marks. So the thicker the paint is, the more concentrated the color is going to be and the darker it will be. The thinner it is, the more you'll be able to see the white of the canvas underneath, which is going to make it look lighter. So you'll be able to get the diversity in the color without even adding another color to your brush. Right now I'm going to start picking up green and yellow at the same time on my brush, and I'm going to start working my way towards the light area, which is going to be where the sun is. I'm still going to overlap the color into the previous section with these dots, so it looks like a nice natural kind of gradient going from the dark paint to the light paint. And I'm going to be bringing this all the way up to my sky, and I will overlap it a little bit into my sky just to have these little ruffled edges along the way. You can certainly make it look like a little hill if you wanted to give a little bit of it coming sloping down, you can certainly do that. Totally up to you on to what type of landscape you would like that to look like. And then I'm just working my way towards that light area, which is going to be the area right behind the sun, still just picking up yellow and green at this point. And in a second I'm going to stop picking up green and I will just be picking up yellow. So that's going to happen right about now. I'm not going to pick up green, just picking up yellow. And again, that remnants of the green on my brush is going to be working its way off onto the canvas as I'm using this yellow. So the yellow is in essence just making this version of the green into a nice lighter green as it's working its way towards that sun. And right now I'm going to start picking up white without washing my brush. So a little bit of white on my dirty brush is going to get me these last little bits of super bright grass right by the edge of the sun. And then you can fiddle with this all you'd like. If you want to just keep making sure that you fill in all your little dots, that's great. And then we're going to be utilizing our medium paintbrush for the next step. So once you've got your ground all nice and done, you can put your large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the base coat for our pumpkins. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the color I'm using is orange. So, I do want to forewarn you that you want to have your canvas dry before you start this step. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So whatever way you've got to do is totally fine. So I'm going to have two primary pumpkins. They're going to be really large. I'm going to have one big one here and then one kind of tipped on the side. And then I'm just going to have a whole bunch of smaller pumpkins that will progressively get just really tiny as they go off into the horizon or off into the distance. So I'm going to start with my big pumpkins first. I'm going to have one of them kind of sit a little bit behind the other one. So I'm going to do my main one first. So I'm just going to put some orange paint on my brush. I'm going to have this maybe about an inch away from the top of my horizon line. And I'm going to have it coming, if this is about halfway left to right in my canvas, I'm a little bit over to the right of this. And the beautiful thing about pumpkins is they don't have to be a perfectly round type of object. They can have lumps and bumps and stuff on them. So feel free to make yours as bumpy as you want or as squished as you want. I'm coming about maybe 3 or 4 inches away from the edge of my canvas for this. And then on the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of ripple it a little bit. This will give me the bottom edge bumps that I am familiar with on pumpkins. And then I'm just going to color it in with a really kind of heavy coat of my orange paint. I know that my orange paint is very translucent, but I'm utilizing this dark background to provide a darker version of the orange, which will make it look like it's set in the shadows. So I'm allowing my paint to be translucent, but I'm still using a pretty thick coat of it. So that way you can, it's being darkened by the paint underneath, but I still will get a good coverage that will provide me with a nice solid orange look to it. So once I've got that one done, and I kind of used my brush stroke in the direction that I feel that the lumpy object is, the round lumpy object. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my next one is going to be, I'm going to say it's going to come out probably about 3 or 4 inches from the right hand side of my canvas, and I'm going to have it maybe somewhere close to the tip of my horizon and through here. And I'm going to have this one kind of leaning on the side. It's going to be kind of rolled over a little bit with a little dip in the top where I'm going to have that stem kind of coming out. And this one I'm going to have maybe coming behind this one over here a little bit, maybe just a little bit in through there. It's going to come behind it, and then it's going to be this will represent the bottom of it for me. So somewhere around here is where I'm going to put those bumps, and then I'm just going to color it in with that pretty heavy orange paint. And where it is meeting the other one, I'm just going to kind of go right next to it. So I know I can see the line, but you could leave a little space in between them if you wanted to. So you could certainly see that, that distinct definition on your own so you don't lose track of it. And then once I've got these two in here, it's just a matter of having fun with locating other areas that you want to have some of your pumpkins in. I'm thinking I might want this a little bit more round in through here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna have a couple on the bottoms. So maybe one is gonna be over here. And these other ones that I'm gonna do are just little accent pumpkins. I don't need them to have a lot of detail to them. I'm just really carrying this orange color throughout the rest of my painting. Maybe I have a little one kind of on the other side of this one. So maybe just a little one in through here. Maybe I'm going to put a couple down over in this direction over here. So we got one here, and I don't really even need any special brush stroke. I'm really just putting in some orange type of circular objects. As I get closer to the horizon line, I'm probably going to start to put little clusters. So it looks like they're really small off in the distance, and maybe they're in these little like groupings, and maybe I'll just put a couple tiny ones over on this side. And then we will be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your pumpkins all piled up and as organized as you want them to be, you can wash and dry the medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting stems for our pumpkins, and shadows on and under the pumpkins. So pumpkin shadows and stems, that's what we're doing. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are black, brown, orange, green, and white. And how I'm going to do this is we're going to start by putting our pumpkins in, or our stems in place. Then we'll go and do all of our shadows underneath, and then we'll end on the pumpkins, and then we'll come back and put a little detail on our stems. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm loading my brush with black paint right now, and I'm going to decide where I want my stems to go. So I've got a stem over on this one. I'm going to have it on this side because I want it to kind of come up and be almost like a pedestal for one of my fairies to stand. This one I'm going to have kind of in the center, and it's going to kind of go over to the right and over. And I might put one on here and maybe just the little impression of one on the small ones, but these are my two main guys right in through here. So I'm going to start by just rubbing myself in an area at the base of the pumpkin and just kind of pulling it out a little bit around the edges, which is going to create almost like a little shadow around it. And then I'm going to decide how it's going to come out of the pumpkin. So I'm going to have mine kind of coming out at a little bit of an angle. Just reloading my brush. I'm going to have it coming right above my horizon line, so somewhere in this vicinity is fine. And of course I'm going to give it a little bit of a of movement, or a little bit of a curved line, so I can have that stem coming out in a kind of a nice movement out of the pumpkin, so it's not straight. So the same thing for this one. I'm going to have this one kind of coming out in this direction, rubbing in myself like a little dark area, and then pulling out some little what will be shadows in between the grooves of the pumpkin. So something like this, and then I can decide how I'm going to have this stem coming out. So I'm going to have it coming out at an angle like this, and it's going to meet or end somewhere up in this vicinity, and I'm going to just have this kind of coming again at a nice curved angle. I'm trying to make it not look exactly like the one over there, so just giving it a little bit more of a bend. And then if you want any other stems, like maybe I want a little tiny stem on this one, so you can certainly put them on wherever you want. I'm going to pretend like this one's off the camera or out of viewing range. Maybe we have a little tiny one over here. And then what I'm going to do is, without washing my brush, I'm going to be putting shadows underneath my pumpkins. So these are going to come in the direction of from where the light source is. So the light source is here. So if I was to draw a line from the light source to the center of that pumpkin and then just come out at that angle, that's the angle it would go. So same thing with here. This is the center of my sun coming to here. My angle of my shadow is going to be to the right. So I did not wash my brush, but I don't need a ton of paint on my brush, so I can just kind of wipe it off on my paper towel, making sure that I get right underneath my pumpkin in through here. My shadow would be at a little bit of an angle. You can, if you want your shadow to be a little bit translucent, you can add a touch of water to your brush. I'm going to have this one pretty darn big in through here and coming a little bit off to this side. This is almost directly behind it, so I'm just going to kind of play with this in through here. That's looking pretty good for me on that one. You can also use, if your grass is lighter than mine, you can use brown and black on your brush at the same time. So I had to reload my brush for this one. This one I want it to look like it's coming off the ground a little bit, so I'm going to stop this shadow right about in through here and then just pull, I'm going to pull it out into this right direction. And if you can see some of your grass underneath, awesome. If not, no worries, because we'll be putting a little bit of detail on it later. And if this is coming this way, I probably would have a little peekaboo spot underneath here that doesn't have a shadow, because the light would be coming through underneath there. And then I'm going to use that same maybe black and brown to add little shadows underneath my other pumpkins, and I'm pulling them out in the direction that the light source tells me to pull them out. So if my light is over there, I pull them to the left, and on the other side we'll pull them to the right. So just little tiny dark marks underneath here, little tiny dark marks underneath these ones, just pulling them out to the left like this. And again, pull this one out to the left, and then I'm going to go ahead and do these ones over here. So this one probably wouldn't see much. This one we've got coming in through here. And if you're having difficulty seeing your shadow marks, just put a little bit more black on your brush. The black will overpower, and you'll be able to see the black on top of any color that's underneath it. So just kind of adding these little tiny dark marks underneath and in the direction that I feel that that shadow would be cast. And it's a low sun, so you can have nice long shadows coming out the back sides of these. That'll tell the viewer that the sun is nice and close to the horizon line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up some brown and orange, and I'm going to pull up some shadows up in those creases of the pumpkin towards the center of where the stem is coming out. So something like this, I can utilize those little dips that I put in the bottom of the pumpkin as my starting point for those type of lines. And you don't have to go super dark, just kind of use the remnants of the darkness on your brush, utilizing a little bit of brown and orange to help you out. So the darkest part is going to be down where it's meeting the ground. So if you wanted to, you could certainly use a little bit of black on your brush at those particular areas, but as it's coming up towards the top, utilizing more orange and brown is going to help get those to look a little bit more natural. And then we don't have much to do on these little guys over here, but definitely if you want to put a little bit of shadow underneath them, awesome. We will be enhancing these shadows with highlights on the opposing side later, so you don't really have to do a whole heck of a lot, just making sure that they're going, if for the ones that are important to you, just making sure those little stripes are going in the correct direction. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your shadows, oh, I need that little detail on the stems. Hold on one second. So I'm just washing and drying my brush. I'm going to be using green, brown, and white to put a little highlight and information on my stem. So my highlight is over there. I have green, brown, and white on my brush. I'm going to just put a little highlight over on the side where the sun is, and then I'm just going to pull down these cool little swirly stripes into the base of that stem. The stems on pumpkins can be several different shades of green, brown, tan. So if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, it's okay. I'm going to put a little highlight up in through here to show the tip of that. The highlight's going to go on the left side of this one, and then just pulling down some swirly kind of streaky things to make it look like the stem of a pumpkin. And now I'm going to wash and dry this brush in preparation for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are finishing our pumpkins with highlights and any additional color that you might want to put on them. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The dominant colors that I'm going to be using are white, yellow, and orange. But if you feel that you want to bring some of that brown into play, feel free to do so. So how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be, again, watching my light source and adding highlights, the brightest part, over on that side of the pumpkin. So my light source is over on the other side, so I can add it over maybe on the top here, maybe coming around this corner a little bit, definitely on the edges of this, and all on those edges that are leaning towards the light, and then I'll just fade it out into the dark side in the back. So I'm going to start with yellow and white on my brush at the same time, and I'm going to be, in essence, kind of designating where I have, or where I want the brightest highlights to go. So I've got some yellow and white in through there, maybe pull it, I'm going to pick up a little bit more orange right now, pulling it back in this direction and through here. And all the while I'm thinking of the shape of that pumpkin. So I know that there's little grooves in through here, so I'm going to, as I'm doing this highlights, I will say, oh, okay, well, I should probably leave a little darkness in through there. That's going to tell the viewer that it dips in a little bit in through there. And this highlight can go all the way around that edge because the sun is all the way on that side. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this one. I will definitely be adding more orange in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of getting the highlights, the shape, you know, or in the designated areas that I really want them to be pronounced. So bringing this over into the top of my pumpkin, in through here, the top over in through here, maybe creeping around this edge a little bit, just something like that. I think I want a little on this right side over here as well, right along this edge in through here, as if it's kind of catching the light along the side, maybe a touch underneath here to give it that bit of from there, and then I can just kind of go through the rest of them and just kind of give them that extra bit of highlight in the area that I feel would be illuminated by the sun. So when you get to the little guys, you can just really almost add just almost a little streak along that side where the sun is. So something like this is just kind of adding that little streak, and I will in a second be adding getting this highlight to blend in with the actual pumpkin itself. So now that I've kind of designated that, I'm just wiping my brush off on my paper towel, so I still have a little of the white and the yellow, and I'm going to pick up some orange, and this is going to help me to get these highlighted areas to just kind of blend in with the rest of the pumpkin. So I don't need to color the whole thing with this highlighted area. I don't need to recover the whole thing with orange either, but I like the idea of getting the highlight to transition into the dark area in kind of a gradual way. So that's why I picked up orange to, in essence, kind of transition that bright area into the darkness with the remnants of the highlight colors on my brush. So I'm just taking it and pulling it down this back side, and then of course doing the same on all the other ones and getting that to blend in as much as I want. I missed this little guy down here. Gonna put a little bit of yellow and white on my brush, give him a little highlight over into here. And you can do highlights on the fly too, or amp them up a little bit if you feel it's necessary. And if you had some of your background color showing, you can certainly just kind of keep fiddling with the layers on those pumpkins to get it to blend in as much as you want, or to get that background to be disguised as much as you want. You can put a little more lightness over here on this edge here. So I just picked up some white with my dirty brush, so that's going to give me a nice kind of alternate color with that. I had some orange on my brush, so that's white and orange is going to give me a different kind of tone than the white and the yellow. So it all works out. The more values and tones that you have, the more you're going to make it look nice and natural, keeping this light area on the side of the sun. And I'm just going to kind of keep fiddling until I feel like I've got a bright enough highlight. This is maybe just a little more over in through here. Make sure I sell the story of that sun being super bright and getting its beautiful luminescent values or volume onto all the objects that we want it to. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush. So once you've got all your little highlights done, you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting our fairy bodies. We'll be putting the wings and the clothes on later. This is just going to be the bodies for them. I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using just black paint. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm in essence going to be talking you through stick figures, and then we'll shape those stick figures into these beautiful, playful fairies. So I'm going to use my small brush, I'm going to be using black paint, and throughout this process I will be adding a little bit of water to my black paint in order to get it nice and thin, like an ink consistency. And then what I do is I take my brush and I spin it in the paint on the side of my palette, and that gets my brush nice and pointy. So that provides me with a way so I can make some nice skinny fluid lines. So we're going to start with this one over on the left hand side, and we'll make our way to the right side fairy. So the one that I've got coming on over here, I have in essence implying that it's jumping off of the tip of this pumpkin and just kind of playfully jumping into the grass or onto another pumpkin. So the stick figure that I'm going to show you how to do is going to have the back of the body here, the thigh, couple of legs, and a couple of arms. So I'm going to start with the main stick, which is going to be the torso and the head. I'm going to put the tippy top of the head right about in through here. So this is about maybe 2 or 3 inches from the right or from the left hand side of my canvas, and almost halfway between here and the bottom of my canvas, maybe a little bit shy of that. And then I'm going to connect it to right about here. So this is about maybe 2 inches long, and then I'm just going to connect those two with a diagonal line. It doesn't even have to be a super clean line, just something that will get those two connected. Then I'm going to come over to the left. You can go straight over to the left about as far as that top head part is, and come up maybe about a half of an inch. Make yourself a mark. This is going to be for the knee, and then I'm going to connect these two in through there. And then I'm going to make myself 2 little legs. So I'm going to put a foot, the tip of the foot is going to be right about here and here, and then I can connect this knee to the foot, and I'm using just kind of a nice skinny line, especially down towards that foot. I'm going to make one like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some arms on. So I'm having my arms coming from about here on the back, and I'm going to have them coming in a diagonal type of motion up right about to there. And then I'm going to do the other one is going to come from the same spot right about here, and it's going to come up in a diagonal, but it's going to end a little bit shorter than that one, as if it's a little bit farther away from us. So then what I'm going to do, I got to make a body here. So I'm going to be making myself a little bit of a head with kind of a circular type motion in through here like this. Maybe bring it almost about halfway between here and the top of the structure that we gave it. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a nose about halfway down that face, maybe a little bit of a chin in through there, a little forehead with some bangs or hair, and then a little bun on the back of her head like that. Then I'm going to give her a front part of her body. So this is going to be her neck. It's going to move into her chest right about here. And then I'm going to give her like her belly that goes down into this vicinity. I'm going to go ahead and give her a thigh. So from this area in through here, we're going to take this and just bump it up just a little bit. Bring it to that knee right in through here. I'm going to take and give her the bottom part of her thigh. So this is going to be the bottom part of her rear end, and it's going to bring it right up to that knee. Something like that. We'll put her back on in a minute. So she looks a little funny right now without a back, but I'll give her back in a minute. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put from the knee, I've got to put a calf, an ankle, and then a little foot. So from the knee, I'm going to do a calf, a little ankle in through here, and then her foot just kind of juts out, her heel of her foot, and then the tip of her toe in through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other leg. So we're only seeing the side of this leg in through here. So, or a portion of it, the bottom portion. So I've got her calf in through here. I've got her little ankle in through here. And then I have her heel like this. And then her toes kind of already formed for me. Now I'm going to go ahead and give her her back. So her back is going to come right about where her shoulders are going to come in through here. We'll get them to merge in with those arms in a minute. It's kind of a little bit of a rounded back, and it rounds right into the rear end. I can color that in just like that. And then I've got to put my arms on here. So we've got the part that meets in with the back and the shoulder. We got to bring it to the elbow for that bicep area, something like this, making sure it looks kind of natural. And I keep reloading my brush with watered down wet paint so I can make sure that I have it in a nice fluid way. Gonna add some little fingertips, a little thumb and some fingers, thicken it a little bit at that forearm, keeping it a little bit more narrow at the elbow. Same thing with this. She's got her arms way up behind the back of her head here. She's really just having fun flying through the air. And then of course you can make any little adjustments you want to her. We are definitely going to be putting some wings on her in a little bit. So if it didn't come out totally the way that you had hoped it would, don't worry about that. We can strategically put some wings on there. We're going to go ahead and move to the next one, who's going to be jumping from this pumpkin over to this one. So she's way high up in the air. I'm going to have her kind of in a slanted type of posture. So the tippy top of her head is maybe about 3 inches from the top of my canvas, somewhere in through here. And I'm going to be doing a diagonal line from the tippy top of where her bun of her hair is down to right about where her, I would say, her thigh meets her hip area. So somewhere right about here. I'm going to connect those two with just a line, something like this. And if it's a little crooked like mine is, that's okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and give her a knee. That's going to be right about here. So I'm going to connect these two, something like that. I'm going to go ahead and give her another leg. So I just pulled this out just a little bit more because I want to have a diagonal line for this other leg. So I brought this out just a little bit further. I'm going to bring this down. This is her other leg in through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and give her from this knee is going to travel like this to a little area where we're going to have her toes. So something like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and put her arms on. So I'm going to have her arms or her shoulder type of area right about in through here. So almost about halfway from the tippy top of the head to where the legs are going to meet. So you can make yourself maybe like a 1/2 inch wide line somewhere in through there. And then I'm going to have one arm coming up in this direction with the fingertips going just a little bit higher than the head. And then I'm going to have the other arm coming out in this direction. And this is going to be about where her wrist is going to go. We'll give her hand is kind of tipped. The same thing with this one. The hand will be tipped a little bit. So now that we've got our stick figure, we just got to kind of add all of the objects are on it. So I'm going to put her head is going to go somewhere in through this vicinity. Nice oval kind of shape, not too big, not too small. Going to give her a little bun on the top of her head, something like this. I need to give her a neck that's going to go into her shoulders. So we're going to do something like that. We'll give her some shoulders in a minute, but I want to take care of her waist and her torso in through here. So I'm going to bring this out just a little bit, bring it in towards her torso like this. We're going to give her her waist and her kind of rear end at the same time. So this is going to just kind of travel into this line in like this. I'm going to give her a thigh on this left hand side. So just bringing this something like that, bringing her thigh underneath like this. Going to give her a calf muscle in through here. Going to give her a little ankle and then a little foot, or the heel of her foot and the tip of her toe. Let me just kind of rearrange my tip of my brush here. It's starting to splay out on me, so I just need to re-control it here like this. Give her a little tip of her toe. And then on this side, I'm gonna give her her thigh. So you may cross right over part of your other leg, which I'm definitely going to do. I'm trying to keep myself a little peekaboo spot in between those legs to give it a little bit of extra information. And then I'm going to make it kind of on the wider side for her thigh, bring it in a little bit at her knee, then give her a bit of a calf muscle, but it's not going to be as wide as her thigh. And then I'm going to give her a little bit of a foot. This foot we're not seeing from the side, we're seeing either from the total front or the total back, so we're just going to kind of give it a little bit of a bump in through there and kind of bring it down. I am going to clean up this edge just a little bit in through here. So sometimes your figures might get a little bit bigger as you go along, just because, you know, your brush got away from you here or there, but that looks pretty good. So if you felt that you needed to widen the area of any other place just to make up the difference or make them look symmetrical, that's great. So that looks pretty good. We've got to give her some arms. So I've got to connect her torso to her arms. So of course she's got her shoulder kind of muscles in through here, giving her this ability to fly in the air, making sure that the armpit areas kind of work their way into each other so they're not straight, angles. I'm gonna give her her bicep somewhere in through here. Gonna give her a little bit of a forearm somewhere in through here. And I'm gonna have her hands kind of tipping over like she's definitely enjoying the flight that she is on. So just bringing some little hands down and through there, and same thing over here. So I'm going to give her a little bit of a bicep. So the trick is just you don't need to push your brush really hard to create these little muscular pieces of information or this body structure. And you can always make it bigger. It's tough to make it smaller, especially since we're using black paint as our base color here. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to have this one standing on this pumpkin stem, kind of looking off to the sun. So I'm going to have the top of my stick figure about halfway between my stem and the top of my canvas. So somewhere right about here is where I'm going to have it. And I'm in essence going to just draw a line to my stem, but it's going to be a little bit at a diagonal. So I'm going to take it from here, and I'm just going to draw myself a line somewhere right in through here. So a little bit at a diagonal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my limbs on. So I'm going to right about in the center place, in right about here, I'm going to designate this as maybe my waist. I'm going to have my shoulders right about in through here. So I'm going to do my legs first. This first line that we made is one of the legs, and then I'm going to make my other leg is going to be on the right hand side. So I'm going to have it kind of kicking out a little bit. So I'm going to have maybe one line like that, and then one something like that. And then I'm going to have my arms are just going to be kind of straight down from my body. So I'm going to say these are going to be my shoulders, and I'm going to have this one kind of coming down like this, and maybe kicking out just a little bit in through there. And then same thing on this side. Maybe this one's going to come down something like this, and maybe a little bit coming out towards the side. So that's going to be my stick figure part. I'm going to go ahead and build my girl here. So I'm going to have this as the top of the head. Going to give a little bit of an oval shape for the head in through here. I'm going to put a bun on the top of her head on this top right hand side, something like this. I'm going to give her some little features on her face. So she's going to have a nose that's going to be about halfway down that oval. She's going to have a little bit of a chin. She's going to have a forehead with some bangs somewhere in through there. Going to give her a neck somewhere in through here like this. She's going to have some shoulders. I'm going to put this shoulder kind of down a little bit. The other one I'm going to put a little bit going up, so it almost looks like she's kind of curious and has one shoulder up a little bit. I'm going to give a torso. I'm going to consider somewhere in like this vicinity to be maybe her waist. Maybe this is where her butt is going to be, but I'm going to move her waist to about there. Going to give her a torso in through here. So we're just seeing her from the back, so we don't need any real major shape along her chest area. This is going to be brought out just a little bit. When I do those arms, the arms will look better once we modify them a bit. I'm going to work on this left leg first. So I'm going to put a thigh on here, somewhere about here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the back side of the thigh on, which is going to bring me to the butt. So this is going to be like this, going to go right over the other one. Let me just connect this torso to the rear end in through here. I'm going to go ahead and give this left leg a calf muscle somewhere in through here. And then she's going to have a little foot. That's going to be her heel. She's going to have some toes that she can stand on. There we go. So she doesn't fall over. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish this back leg over here. So I've got to get the butt to kind of meet in with that thigh, something like this. This is going to have her calf muscle. This leg is definitely kicked back. We're seeing it from a different angle, so we're going to have a little calf muscle in through there. And then I'm going to have this foot kind of just dangling down. Maybe we're going to bring this down just a little bit more. Yeah, that looks about right to me. And then going to have this foot just kind of with a little bit of a heel and then just kind of dangling down. And of course you can make it, or maybe she's poking it out a little bit. You can have yours whatever way that you want. Sometimes it just happens the way that it happens. So we just let her posing in her own special way. We're going to give her a little bit thicker of arms now. So I'm going to give her bicep, kind of just widening that arm a little bit in through there. She's got her forearm in through here, and then I'm going to give her a cute little hand with a little thumb, and then maybe her other fingers are out like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this left side, just making sure that it looks silhouetted and in a good enough proportions that are going to sell the story of her just kind of enjoying this sunshine, and giving her a little hand in through here, some fingers, a thumb. That's looking pretty good. And then of course you can do any little modifications that you feel necessary. Maybe bring this shoulder up just a little bit to shorten that neck. And then we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful fairies on here, you can do any modifications that you want and wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're painting some fairy wings and the fairy dresses. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using black and white and probably some water as well. So you can really have fun and make your fairy wings look whatever way that you'd like to. I tend to make mine kind of airy and like butterfly-y kind of wings, but you can really make yours like feathers or, bird wings, whatever you'd like to. And then I'm going to just put almost like translucent ballerina type skirts on them that are nice and see-through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initially start with some really watered down black paint. So again, I'm just taking my small brush and adding water to it so it's very fluid, so I can just kind of get some thoughts on my canvas and then start to work in some other information. But I want it to be see-through and I want it to be fluid, so that way I can just have it look nice and airy. So you can even, once you have the black paint on your brush, you can even dip your brush in your water and then just dab it onto your paper towel. You'll still have black paint on there, but it'll be nice and see-through and just give you that control that helps out. So I'm going to start over here with this one. I'm going to do my wings. I'm going to have bigger wings coming as the top ones and then a little bit smaller wings for the bottom ones. And in my head, I'm imagining them between her arms. In the middle of her back is where they're coming out. and I'm going to have them kind of come in like over her head or maybe around her head for these top two. So I'm going to start this top one maybe somewhere in through here. And again, I like to kind of have mine almost like butterfly type of wings. So I like to just kind of keep my brush in a fluid type of motion. Once I get them there, then I just kind of pull up a couple of little streaks up the middle of them just to give them a little bit of almost like a veiny kind of look to them. And of course you can reshape them all you want. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my the bottom ones. So these ones I'm going to have kind of coming out in through here, maybe just flipping up, something like that. There's one, and then I'll kind of do the other one. So I like to overlap them a little bit and give them a similar shape, and then I'm just kind of pull a couple of streaks out in through there. I'm going to do the same thing for the skirt. So the skirt would, or dress would come kind of down the back, and I'm going to have it just kind of flowing out. It's also going to be laying on top of the leg and then just kind of flowing out in through here. So I'm going to start like this and then just kind of bring it out like that. So it's going to be really nice and flowy. And then once I kind of have that shape on there, again, I'm using really watered down black paint at this moment. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white plus my watered down black paint to give me the highlights to my clothing and my wings. So I just picked up a little bit of white with my watered down black paint. I want to be able to see the motion of the fabric on her body, and then maybe a little bit in the air as well. If you want, you can pick up a little bit more black. Like I feel like I want a couple of darker streaks in the skirt itself coming down in through here. So you can just, once you have them in place, just kind of play with the lightness and darkness of those lines, and then maybe a couple of little white streaks throughout the wings in through here to show that maybe they're being illuminated a little bit by that beautiful sun. And then I'm just going to kind of move on to my next one when I feel comfortable that I have these in the direction that I want them to be, and that they're airy enough that makes me nice and happy. You could certainly put a couple of little gray streaks or black and white streaks down the back. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to this lady in through here, the fairy lady, and then I'm going to reload my brush with that watered down black paint. I'm going to go ahead and put my upper wings in motion. So I think I'm going to have this one, let's see, coming up her back and maybe up in through this area. And again, I really like mine to be nice and fluid and bringing them out in a, a very airy kind of way. Maybe this one crosses over underneath here. Once I've got them in, I start just pulling up a couple of streaks out up through that center area. Again, just to, maybe this one needs to come back down past that arm. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and make myself a couple of smaller ones. And the smaller ones in the back can cross over that larger one if you wanted them to. Just making these nice and airy and similar, trying to give them similar size from one side to the other so they look like they would belong together, and then just giving those little streaks on in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and reload my brush with that watered down black paint, kind of planning out where I want this skirt to be. So I want her to look like she's jumping in that direction. So it would make sense for me to have the skirt kind of flying in this direction, similar to here, but I didn't say it out loud. I want her to look like she's flying or jumping off that way. So her skirt the wind would take it this way. So I'm going to have this one coming over this knee like this, and then maybe just kind of going somewhere in this direction, and then maybe we'll see a little bit of it over on this side of the body, and then just kind of trailing into there. And then I can use this watered down paint to just kind of tell the story of the direction of that skirt. And now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white with that watered down black to give it that highlight over on top of that leg so you can actually see it. And it shows the form of the body. You could even bring this up the back a little bit. If you wanted to see part or to show that there's maybe a little highlight on part of that or the waistline somewhere in through there, you could obviously add a couple of light streaks if you wanted to, wherever you wanted to, just to show the motion of this fabric. And then I'm going to put a couple of these lighter streaks up in the wings themselves. So again, just black and white. And to me, these wings are going to be on this side of the body. We're seeing her from behind. So just a couple of little streaks here and there will give you that dimensional element, even without, you know, without doing much to it. You know, again, I want mine to look nice and airy and have this beautiful softness to them. So just a little light streak here and there will do all I need it to do. And then I'm going to move on to my third lady over here. So wash and dry my brush just to get that white paint off there, going in for my watered down black paint, planning it out where I want it. This one, again, I want her to kind of look like she's, you know, just staring at that beautiful sun. So I'm going to maybe make, I think this is going to come way up in through here, and it's going to trail down into her back somewhere in through here. I feel like I have some white on my brush, so I'm washing and drying it again. I must have bumped into it on my palette unexpectedly. So just preparing my brush again, bringing this down to the mid back region, somewhere in through here. I'm going to go ahead and do a second one somewhere in through here, putting a little bit more water on my brush to pull these pieces out like this, and again just give you that airiness of those wings. Going to do the bottom two wings now. These ones I think I'm going to have overlap in this vicinity a little bit, give myself the little tips of them, go like this, and maybe this one is going to go in through here and just bringing a couple little streaks out like that. And I'm going to go ahead and plan out my skirt. So this one, she's not really jumping or anything, but maybe the wind is catching it a little bit. So I'm going to have it kind of coming out this side in through here, maybe just past her knees. I'm going to bring it. So bring it right in through here, and maybe it kind of just gives a little ripple or a wave coming out like this, and it's got to cover her rear end in through here, and then maybe it just kind of floats off like that. And then I can give those movement kind of marks to just indicate how this fabric is flowing. And then I can pick up a little bit of that white paint with my watered down black paint to give myself those bits of highlights over on the side where I really want you to see that the light is coming from, and also to give myself and the viewers some indication of the flow of this fabric. So these little dainty light lines will definitely help to do that. And of course you can put a couple of them in your wings as well, so that can either add additional airiness to them or highlights, whatever works for you. And you could always, if you wanted to, you could always add a bit of a highlight on the edge of your fairy's body and face, and to give that illusion that she's being lit up as well. So if you wanted to do that extra bit of information, that helps to sell your story. You could do it to all of them. You could put just little bits of highlights on the side where that sun is. And then we have we might have two steps. Let's go. We got two little steps left. So the next step, we're going to be using our large paintbrush. So once you've got your fairies all nice and frolicking in the air, you can put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to be adding some details on my grass. So as I was looking at this, I feel like this, where we put the shadows in this foreground grass, I feel like I want some more volume to it, and I want these pumpkins to look like they're kind of sitting in the grass. So I'm going to add some extra pieces of grass, just kind of in front of them, so that'll give it a little bit extra dimension. So I'm going to be using my large brush. I'm going to primarily be using green and black, but if I feel I need to or want to use another color, I'll let you know. So I'm going to start with just a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush. I don't need much at all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull up a couple of pieces, longer pieces of grass in front of the bottom edge of my pumpkin. So this is going to give me the shadowy kind of colors or effects along the edge of the pumpkin, and it's going to provide me with a dimensional element for these pieces of grass. You can certainly have some longer ones and some shorter ones. You can have fun with however you want that to look. You could even do it on some of these other ones. If you have some close-up ones that you feel would benefit from this additional detail, feel free to do it. And then once even you can do it along that shadowy area if you want to in the bottom of your canvas. Once you've got that on there, I'm just gonna wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up some green, and just introduce a little bit of green in through here as well. So I know that the green will turn darker as it dries, but just kind of getting it on here and giving myself this little bit of a dimensional element is making my painterly eye a lot happier. Like, I just wanted some more texture down in through here, so I wanted to go ahead and add that in through there. But if you feel that you want to back this off, or you can even add some yellow, or you can, do whatever you'd like to make it in that final stage for you. But these kind of little details help to make me feel like I've completed the painting. I've got everything's nice and textured, and it's got these great realistic kind of elements, even though it's a fantasy style painting. And then if you wanted to, you could certainly put some little bright pieces in through here. So maybe some yellow and white ones are in this little spot peeking through where the sun is shining. So feel free to have fun at this final step. This is just, doing those little final details that are going to make you happy as the painter. And then we are going to be switching to our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away wherever you'd like to. Take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I normally sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going bottom left on this one, small brush, black paint. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you painted yourself a really whimsical image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.